guys can have a seat at this time. I do not want to waste too much time with an introduction, but we're still in our series called Life is Relationships, and we'll say the rest, it's just details, because no matter what you're doing in your life, it probably involves some sort of relationship. So we've been talking about some really good stuff, and today I just want to get right into it. Today, for the first time ever, minus the first service, my wife is going to be joining me on stage. So if you would please help me get her up with a little bit of round of applause.
Oh.
This
Thanks.
is my wife.
You don't have to clap. That's okay.
She doesn't like applause or any of that, but I got to do the intro. So
I get to sit down, right?
For those of you that don't know, my name's Chase, one of the pastors here at River's Edge. Been here just over 2 years. And I just told you, this is my wife, Jacqueline. I call her Jay. You can't call her that. You can call her Jacqueline or Jack. They can't call you Jay. That's my thing.
Oh. Sorry, guys.
That's my thing. And today we're going to be talking about relationships. And I thought it might be fun just to do something a little bit different. If I can twist my wife's arm and get her on the stage to talk to you, it might be a good way to kind of approach this thing called marriage with both of us up here instead of just me. And so we're going to try it. Well, actually, we already tried it. We're just going to do it again.
We'll see how it goes again.
I listen to a lot of podcasts. One podcast I listen to, he interviews a lot of people, and he always starts with this question. He says to his guest, guest, can you give us the elevator answer to who is Jacqueline Reber? Meaning, me and you just walked in an elevator together. We don't have much time. Just give me the who is Jacqueline Reber. So they know me, well,
right.
Most of them, but do they know you? So who is Jacqueline Reber?
Okay, I'll start off with I am an introvert. So it says a lot that I'm up here in front of all of you. It means I love you.
Yes.
This is generally an act of love. I'm introverted. I love people. I just don't like being with them all the time. So I feel like some of you can probably. Thank you. Yeah.
Speaks to somebody, yeah.
Yeah. I love kids. I feel like I can carry on a conversation with a 6-year-old better than like a 60-year-old sometimes, which is why right now I work at Neff Kindergarten Center in Grand Ledge, and this next year I'm going to be subbing instead, but that's a whole other story. But I love kids, working with them, and I love you all. That was in my notes. Not because I didn't remember, but there you go.
That's good.
The elevator door's open.
Elevator door's open. We can step out now. Thank you for letting them know who you are. So now that's you. That's Jacqueline Reber, the person. Now tell them kind of maybe a little bit more about who we are and maybe a little history on us, because we're gonna be talking about marriage, and maybe why are we talking about marriage besides the fact that we're married.
So we met because I dated both of Chase's brothers, but we're not going to tell that story today. He keeps saying, yeah. Go ahead.
I'll say it.
We're not going to.
If we have time at the end of the message, and since we don't have a second service to get to, we should have time. I'm just going to make a note, and we'll let her end with that. It's
a
really
few of you have heard that.
Good
yeah, that's
story.
True. So we started dating after I dated both of his brothers. It was great. But we had... Family events are so fun.
Yeah,
no, they really are. It's really great. His family's great, obviously. But anyway,
obviously, they're awesome.
Obviously. So we have been married for 9 years. We had a ton of wisdom poured into us early on in our marriage, even before we were married. And so that's why we wanted to kind of share some of that, and we're so grateful for the wisdom that was poured into us. We kind of grew up fast in our marriage because we got married, and then 11 months later we had Savannah, so we kind of learned to depend on each other in that way just right off the bat, which was a good thing for us, and we're thankful for her. But so we're just going to share some of that wisdom with you guys today, if that's okay.
Yeah, and if it's not, you can leave. But no, so stay. You should stay. I'll just throw this out that we're not perfect. And if you've ever heard someone say they have a perfect marriage, they're lying. Or they're just unaware that their marriage isn't perfect. Because you can't have a perfect marriage because there's two imperfect people coming together. So I will say that we're not trying to stand up here and act like we got it all figured out, because we don't. And we haven't been married that long. And I look out and see a lot of people that have been married way longer than us. And there's that part of me that's like insecure to try and speak some wisdom to you. But I will just say this, that I think... that we do a good job of the things that we're good at, we continue to be good at. The things that we know we struggle with, we communicate it and try to continue to cultivate this marriage. Because hopefully we're going to be married a long time. That is our goal.
Yeah.
And our dream. So we're going to jump into the book of Song of Solomon. How many of you have ever read Song of Songs? Some translations call it the Song of Songs. So this is really a great book. I love it. And it's in the Old Testament, and it's this mushy, gushy, love poetic thing happening between.
It's super mushy-gushy.
Yeah, it's great, honey. It's great. She's really mushy-gushy. So it's really cool. And I read it multiple times this week, kind of thinking, okay, what are we going to talk about? How are we going to go? If you're going to talk about marriage and love, you got to go to the book of Song of Songs. Like, you got to get there. So I'm reading through it. I'm like, man, this is really fun and really exciting. It's a lover and another and his mate, and they're talking to each other, and they're really detailed and really pretty. And so what we're going to do to start it off is I'm going to read a little section from Song of Songs that the guy speaks to his bride. And then after that, I'm going to let her speak what the woman says back to her husband. And so it's going to be really pretty. So if you're a guy and you're trying to figure out, what should I do for Christmas for my wife this year? Maybe just take a couple of notes here, and maybe you can create a poem out of what this guy says. So I got to stand up when I read it to you, honey.
I know. I knew he couldn't sit the whole time.
I can't. Yeah, I can't sit the whole time. So,
I will sit the whole time.
Yeah, here we go. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. This is chapter 4. He says this. You are beautiful, my darling. Beautiful beyond words.
You don't have to look at me.
I don't? Okay. Would this be better for you?
You're making everyone uncomfortable.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love this. So it keeps going. This guy's great. Your eyes are like doves behind your veil. Your hair falls in waves like flocks of goats, winding down the slopes of Gilead. You guys,
wow.
You guys, I know you all talk like this to your bride. Your teeth, this is my favorite section. Your teeth are as white as sheep, recently shorn and freshly washed. Your smile is flawless, each tooth matched with its twin. Your lips are like scarlet ribbon. Your mouth is inviting. Your cheeks are like rosy pomegranates behind your veil. Your neck is as beautiful as the Tower of David, jeweled with the shields of thousands heralded. So you see he's kind of going, starting up here in his eyes and mouth and teeth, and he goes to the neck.
We're all getting nervous.
And then I'm going to skip the next verse. It's PG-13, okay? So if you want to read it on your own, you can. I'm going to skip it for your own sake. And I'm just going to go to how he wraps it up. He says, you are altogether beautiful, my darling. Beautiful in every way. You didn't even turn red, Jay. That was really
That's
good.
good. It's because, yeah.
Now, so he then, he does this 2 more times in this whole book. If you read it, it's really good. And he adds more descriptive things. He actually talks about her belly button at one point. Like, this guy got real weird and detailed. But he kind of gets a little deeper, and you see he does this multiple times. So he's really like trying to show his love to his love. So now, read what she says.
Well,
back.
this is a disclaimer, though. I didn't say this in the first service. If you're like a teenage boy and you're going on a first date, don't read this to her on the first date.
Yeah, this is not good.
They
That's
won't be a
creepy if
second.
you know her
That's
teeth
a little
have a
creepy.
matching twin on the first
Yeah.
date. Yeah, they do. But.
Okay, so I'm going to read the girl version. Here we go. My love is fit and strong, notable among 10,000. His head is pure as gold. His hair is... You're going to need to stop making those noises, though. His hair is wavy and black as a raven. His eyes are like doves beside flowing streams, washed in milk and set like jewels. His cheeks are like...
I'm sorry. You're just going so fast. I want everyone to appreciate what you're thinking about me right now.
Sorry. His cheeks are like beds of spice, mounds of perfume. His lips are lilies dripping and flowing with myrrh. His arms are rods of gold set with beryl. His body is an ivory panel covered with lapis lazuli. His legs are alabaster pillars set on pedestals of pure gold. His presence is like Lebanon, as majestic as the cedars. His mouth is sweetness. He's absolutely desirable. This is my love, and this is my friend, young women of Jerusalem.
Wow. No, say that last part again. This is my love.
And this is my friend, young
As she
women of
speaks to
Jerusalem.
the young women of Jerusalem. Now, how many of you in the room talk to your spouse like that? Oh, come on. All right.
If you come do it in front of 150 people, it's less fun.
Yeah, it's not, maybe you do that, but I highly doubt we have a lot of people that speak that way in front of all their people. Here's the point. As you read through that, there's a few things that really jumped out at me. Like I said, I read through this multiple times, like, God, what do you want us to say? Like, what wisdom can we give on this relationship? And there's 2 things that I think would be important maybe for us to get today, kind of drawing off of this cute little poetic thing. I would say this: to have a healthy relationship, I believe that you need to continually be learning your spouse and loving your spouse. Constantly, continually, always trying to learn your spouse and love your spouse. Now, I said before, we're talking about life and relationships, and there might be people in the room that aren't married yet, or that aren't married, and you're wondering, like, is this even apply to me? And I will say this: everything we're going to talk about today can be applied to any relationship that you have. Coworker, family, friend, parent-to-kid relationship, or a spouse. So I hope you understand this, that what we're talking about, if you have a friend, you need to be learning your friend to keep that relationship healthy. And you need to be loving that friend because we're called and commanded to love all people. So I want you to know we're going to give some examples that most of them might be specific to the marriage relationship, but that doesn't mean you can go to sleep if you're not married or anything like that. Like, I promise this is healthy and good stuff for all relationships. So the first thing that I think we want to talk about is learning your spouse. And I think to start, we need to understand that this is okay. We are different, and different doesn't mean wrong. I'm going to say it again. You probably know this about you and your spouse, or you and your kids, or you and your friends. We are different, and different doesn't mean wrong.
Right. Chase and I are very different.
Yes.
If some of you who know us know that. He's the extrovert introvert. That's kind of like the typical one everyone sees. I'm kind of the worrier and obsessive planner, and he's kind of like, let's just go do it. Like, we're going. But I think we complement each other. There's other differences. I wrote other ones down. Oh, he's kind of like the golden retriever puppy where everyone he sees he loves, and he wants them to love you, and it's great. And I'm more of like a skeptic and a little more, I hope I don't seem like standoffish, but that's just kind of how it takes me a little while. It's like our cat. We just got a cat yesterday. This is not in our notes. We just got a cat yesterday. I know, yay. Some people don't care. But she is like curled in the corner of the farthest room in the basement right now. I'm not quite like that. That's a great analogy. Golden retriever puppy, kind of like a cat, but will love you and warm up to you most of the time.
Oh, man. That's great. That's your spirit
I shouldn't
animal.
go off the notes. I didn't do this in the first service.
Get back
so.
on track. No, that's good. That's a good example. That's. I think that makes sense. You're a cat.
No, you don't know what to do with this.
Okay, so the reason this kind of comes to mind, I think, is important, is we got to understand that we're different, and different doesn't mean wrong. And then we got to know that our goal, especially in marriage, but even in friendships, is not to make the other person just like us. Okay? When we get married especially, sometimes we come into this like, I'm going to fix him or I'm going to fix her. And we come in with different ideas and different thoughts. And this is the way that I used to do it. And we come in and we think this like, it's me versus you. And so we come into a relationship and we think, oh, we got to continue to do this my way. Or, oh, I guess we're going to do it your way now. But no, when you come together as a married couple, you now get to say, hey, what's best for us? How can we do this our way?
Yeah, a good example of something I think we've maybe not struggled with, but something that we're very different in, like we said, the people person thing. When Chase gets to Friday, after a full week of work and being with people, he wants to go out and have fun with a bunch of people. Where me, after a full week of work with people, I need time to like sit and recharge and just sit on my couch for as long as possible of the weekend. So that's kind of where we have to compromise a lot, where he wants to go do these things and I never want to go do things, but not never, but it's good for us. He brings me out of my shell, and sometimes I reel him in back home, so.
Well, you got to appreciate those differences. That's the other thing I would say, is that we are different. Different's not wrong. I don't need to change her to be just like me. She doesn't need to change me to be just like her. But we need to learn to actually appreciate and value those differences, because if you're going to be a learner of your spouse, if you pay attention to what that Song of Solomon, those verses were about, like picture the detail, right? You have your teeth, your smile. Each tooth has its own matching partner. Like he's just got super detailed and super weird, but like he paid attention, he studied, he just spent time just kind of chilling and staring and learning. Oh yeah, that's beautiful, right? Like he spent time, but it's not just physical. Like you don't just need to study them physically. Like you need to learn and be a learner of your spouse and understand who they are and value the differences. Think of dating. If you remember dating, maybe it's been a long time for you. Maybe you're in the moment right now. Like you tried to talk to them all the time. Like you were always trying to figure out, what do you like? What do you dislike? Let me learn more about you. And then for some reason, many of us, when we get married, we kind of quit that. We kind of give up on the learning part. And I just think that just because you're married doesn't mean you need to stop learning your spouse.
Right, because most likely you're not the same person that you were when you were dating. I know I'm not exactly the same person that I was 9 years ago when we got married, and I probably won't be the same as I am now in 25 years. But that's why I'm probably a little moodier, I will admit that. But we change as we go, and we still need to learn, right?
Whatever you say, honey. Yeah, but I'm maybe a little fatter than we got married, so That's okay.
This is where I'm supposed to say that legs are like timbers thing.
Yeah.
Make it
No,
feel
honey, your
better.
legs are like pillars.
Your legs are like pillars.
It's right there.
You have gold alabaster arms.
Gold arms. All right, that's what I like. Thank you. That's all I needed to hear from you today. When I think of this idea of learning your spouse, and I think of this verse in Philippians, I thought it was good to share. Philippians 2:4 says, "Don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too." I think that's an important thing to remember, that it's not that when you get married you have to give up all of your interests and all of your ideas and all of your dreams. Like you have to just, oh, well, we're married, now I gotta do what she says, or now we gotta do what we do, you know? Like you don't have to give it up, but it says, take an interest in others too. Like, what do you like, and what do you love, and what are your dreams, and what are your interests? And I need to take an interest in those as well, and need to be a part of that. And I think it's not just a marriage thing; it's a friendship thing. I mean, I think it's a Christian thing. If you look throughout the New Testament, this theme of valuing others above yourself, it's everywhere. Look at the verse right before this in Philippians 2:3. It says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself." And then it goes in to say, don't look out for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. And then in Romans 12, it says, "Love one another with brotherly affection. Outdo one another in showing honor." And I think this is super important for the marriage relationship, that like, it's a competition. Like, most of us like competing, right? Like, think of it this way. Your job in your marriage relationship is to outdo one another in showing honor, in showing love, in looking at her interests and her needs and say, hey, honey, every day I want to put your needs above my own and put your interests above my own. And then hopefully she's doing the same thing with me. And she says, no, honey, I want to put your needs above mine. I want to put your interests above mine. Where do you want to go to eat? Taco Bell sounds great. I would love to eat there. Like, that's how it should be. And when we first started dating, we ate Taco Bell a lot. This is not in my notes, but we ate it all the time.
That's because it was cheap.
No, that's true. Because she really, I think it's because she took interest in my interests.
I did, that's
And
true.
now that we've been married 9 years, I realize I normally go by myself.
That's true. You're doing a good job of putting my interests above yours. That's good.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Let's say it that way. So I think that's something that really stuck out to me, is this idea of a healthy relationship is when we're learning our spouse and putting their interest and honoring them and outdoing them in love and honor. Anything you want to say?
Well, I was going to say, I think it's hardest when the person isn't reciprocating that. Like if you're putting the other person's needs over yours over and over and over again, and the other person isn't doing that, that's where the struggle is, and that's where the conflict comes to. So, but like you said, as a Christian thing, that's kind of what we need to be doing with everyone, even when it's not easy.
Yeah, that's good. The second thing I said, so we got to learn our spouse, and we got to love our spouse. And you're like, oh, duh. Like that seems pretty like, okay, yeah, you're supposed to love your spouse. But pay attention to that Song of Songs stuff. Like there was great love in there. Like it was detailed and it was weird probably a little bit, but it was real love. My beloved, you're more beautiful than words can describe. And then as she ended her little section, it says, this is my love. This is my friend. So we see that, this really beautiful, mushy-gushy love.
Right.
And I think that's good.
I'm not a mushy-gushy person. I don't know if you could tell that already from when he read Song of Songs. But, and sometimes, you know, when people put those really long Facebook posts, like all about their spouse, how much they love each other, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm the person that's like, ugh, like, yay, yay for you. But not really. I'm so glad you love each other. Sometimes just, ugh. But anyways, but I wanted to add, we're not just talking about the mushy-gushy love stuff. I think, like, if someone's having trouble in their marriage, you're not going to be like, just love each other more. Like, okay, that's not helpful. Just be mushier and gushier, and everything will be great. We understand, like, that's not a thing, and that's not very helpful. So what we're going to talk about, I think, coming up, is kind of more practical, very intentional, and purposeful ways to love your spouse more than just, like, this is how I feel. So have any of you heard of the 5 love languages? Anybody? Oh, good. Well, maybe not good, because now you're all going to know what we're talking about.
Well, that's good. It wasn't everyone.
No, that's a good thing. This 5 love languages thing, if I had to pick one piece of wisdom to keep, if all of the rest went away about our marriage, this is what I would want to keep. This has been, like, instrumental from the day we got married, or even before. And it's kind of just become sort of a natural thing in our marriage to love each other in this way. And so when people haven't heard of the 5 love languages, we're like, what? Like, how do you even function as a married couple? So anyway, when he was saying we're going to talk, this was what I said. This is what I would like to tell people. So
This is good wisdom. So again, just a reminder, mid-message to help you understand this, like it's not just for your spouse.
Yeah.
As we started to learn the 5 love language things, like we've been able to see how it relates to our kids. Like as they're growing up, we're learning to understand our kids and how they love differently than we love. And our coworkers, and I get to shout out one of our coworkers here in a moment on the 5 love languages, but your coworkers, your friends, your family, like we've been able to apply this kind of teaching to everything. But I just wanted to say this, one of our greatest needs as just a human being is the need to be loved. Would you agree? Like, yeah, we all need to be loved. And if we're married, we need to be loved by our spouse. Like we want that love from them. But it's also a need to be loved by friends and loved by family and loved by our people. I need to be loved by you. You know, like I need you. No, I need you to love me. And I've said that. I try to say that like every other month. And you guys are like, oh, that's funny. And I'm like, no, like I need you to love me. Because it's a need that we all have. We all need to be loved. And it's been a part of like the beginning of time. God, because he loved us, he created us to be in a relationship with him. Like that's kind of cool when you think about it. The creator of the world loved you and wanted a relationship with you, so he created you. Like that, to me, that's pretty powerful. That's pretty exciting. But then after he creates us, he wants us to be in a loving relationship with him. He then also sends Jesus to come because of his great love for us. Jesus came and he died on the cross because of the junk in our life. And it's because of his love that he sacrificed himself for us. We can think of John 3:16. It says, for God so loved the world that he gave, right? That he gave his son. We can think of Romans, I think it's 5:8. It says, but God demonstrates his love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. I love that verse because it tells me at my very worst, God gave his very best in Jesus. And it's because of his great love. That's how he demonstrated it, by sending his son to die. And then we know that not only we have a need for love, we're commanded to it. Like the great commandment, the one thing that Jesus said, if you're going to get anything, you need to get this about the whole Old Testament. Love God and love others. We're commanded to love. We're called to love. And then specifically, since we're talking about marriage, in Ephesians 5:25, it says this, husbands, love your wife just as Christ loved the church. Like that's powerful. To take the same love that Christ gave the church. That's you and me. He died for us. He sacrificed. It's unconditional. We're to take that same love and give it to our spouses. So the key to this is understanding that it's a need we have. It's a command we need to do. Love is extremely important and a big part of the Christian faith and a part of life. So what the 5 love languages does that I like and I appreciate is it helps me realize it and kind of put it into practical ways that yes, I'm called to love someone, but not everyone, as the book would say, speaks the same love language. How many of you ever had a friend or met someone that spoke a completely different language than you? How many of you ever? Yeah. Okay, that's pretty normal to come across people that speak a completely different language. Is it easy or difficult to communicate?
Difficult.
Thank you for your enthusiasm. Is it easy or difficult?
Difficult.
Yeah, it's not easy, right? It's hard because you don't speak the same language. You're trying to speak to them, and they're like, I don't understand what he's saying. And then they're trying to speak to you, and you're like, I don't understand what they're saying. And what this book does is it says that each one of us speaks one of 5 different love languages. And what probably is true is in your marriage that most likely your spouse speaks a little bit different love language than you speak. And so the goal of this book is to help you discover the 5 love languages, help you discover what your spouse's love language is, and then help you learn to speak it and express it to them. So we're going to go through the 5 love languages like Speedy Gonzalez. We're going to boom, 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 boom.
The book is on Amazon for $10. We highly recommend it.
Yeah, $10 right now. So if you're like, Christmas present, what should I get my husband? Here's what you don't do, okay? You don't say, hey, I got you a book you need to read because you need to work on loving me. Okay, that's not, you buy 2. Because for $10, I mean, that's a good deal. You buy 2 books and say, honey, we got each other, I got us a present so we could love each other better. So, okay, you see how the difference?
It's
okay.
a good tip.
It's a good tip. Anyway, $10, Amazon, it's worth it.
You ready for number 1?
Yeah, let's go to number 1.
All right, so some of this first part that we're reading is just from the book. So it says, words of affirmation is the first love language. If this is your love language, unsolicited compliments mean the world to you. Hearing the words, I love you, are important. Hearing the reasons behind that love sends your spirits skyward. Insults can leave you shattered and are not easily forgotten. So we've discovered we kind of each have a top 2 love language. This is our number 2, which is kind of cool that they're the same. We've kind of cool.
Kind of cool.
Oh, you look like that's not cool.
Super
Super cool. We're the same, but even in that, like I need words of affirmation about things that I do. Like, honey, this dinner is great. He needs affirmation about who he is. Like, you are a great leader of our family, kind of a thing.
What else?
Also, good pastor.
I'm good. No, that's
and
good.
your
That's
legs are pillars and
good.
made
That's
of
good.
gold.
Yeah, that's good. All right.
Yeah.
You can stop now. That was great.
Yeah, so it's important for me to lift him up, and also knowing that my words that are negative towards him will tear him down so much faster than maybe somebody else.
Yeah, that's good. The second one is quality time. I'll read this little piece. It says, in the vernacular of quality time, nothing says I love you like full, undivided attention. Being there for this type of person is critical, but really being there with the TV off, fork and knife down, and all the chores and tasks on standby makes your significant other feel truly special and loved. Postponed dates or failure to listen can be especially hurtful. And I think this is kind of an important piece when they talk about quality time isn't just being with them, it's about being with them. So it doesn't mean, well, I'll just spend quality time with you, honey. Come sit on the couch with me. Turn on the TV. Like, that's not quality time. That might be time together, and that might be good. But quality time is saying, I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to put my phone away. What? You can do that? Oh, my goodness. I'm working on that. And looking at her. And the book talks about 5 things I think is important. If you're like, quality time, I think that's my spouse. I think that's my son, or I think that's my friend. Here's what it says. Eye contact is important. My wife used to tell me all the time, listen with your eyes. I'm like, I can hear you with my ears. She goes, no, listen with your eyes. I'm like, okay. She used to do that. Undivided attention. Don't try and do something else. Don't be a multitasker. Just really listen. Listen for feelings, observe body language, and refuse to interrupt. So that's really important in quality time.
Yeah, and as our kids have gotten older, we've realized this is our daughter. She's not in here this service, so I can talk about her, right? Yeah. This is our daughter. She needs, like, to tell you all of her stories from school, and she needs you to look at her. You can't be making dinner while she's chattering. Like, she needs that undivided attention, but she's also an introvert like me, so then she's like, okay, I'm good. Now she's going to go to her room for the rest of the night.
Yeah.
So, not the rest of the night, but she needs that good quality time, and it's fun to see as our kids get older, some of these love languages coming out, and I feel like it helps. Parent them. Was I supposed to say something else? Number three, receiving gifts. Don't mistake this love language for materialism. The receiver of gifts thrives on the love, thoughtfulness, and the heart behind the gift. If you speak this language, the perfect gift or gesture shows that you are known, you are cared for, and you are prized above whatever was sacrificed to bring the gift to you. A missed birthday, anniversary, or hasty, thoughtless gift would be bad.
I'm always like kind of jealous of husbands that their wife is a receiving gifts person, because I believe that would be like easy. Be like, oh, I forgot. I haven't told my wife I love her in like 4 days. Go to the gas station, get a bag of chocolate candy for $1 and beg, hey, honey, I love you. And she's like, oh, you love me so much. Yeah, right? But my wife's like, why'd you spend money on candy? Like, why would you do that? Why would you waste our money on candy? You know, but as you see, it's not just like they're materialistic people. Like, some people, they receive love by knowing that you thought about them on the way home from work. That you took the time to stop, get out of your car in the cold, go inside, pick out their favorite candy, and you knew what it was. And you paid $1 for the bag of peanut butter M&Ms. And you brought it back to them, and you just said, hey, no big deal, honey, but I just was thinking of you on the way home. Here's some M&Ms. And a person that's their love language, they're going, he loves me. He really loves me, right? Like, that's a big deal to them. So don't hear material like, I just buy him gifts. Like, I think it's easier, but it's just my opinion. So
It's a bummer for you.
Bummer for me, because that is the last on my wife's list. And so I bought her a cat for Christmas to tell her I love her. That's how I did it. It hasn't worked yet, but all right.
She's still hiding in the basement.
Number 4. This is I like this one, but I have a love-hate relationship with it because this is my wife's number 1. So it's called acts of service. Well, it's because it's hard.
I know.
Acts of service. Can vacuuming the floors really be an expression of love? Yes. Absolutely. Hey. Amen. All right, let's close with a word of prayer.
Thank you.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, that's true. Anything you do to ease the burden of responsibilities weighing on an active service person will speak volumes. The words he or she most wants to hear are, let me do that for you. And laziness and broken commitments and making more work for them, that's just telling them with this language that their feelings don't matter. So this is my wife, for sure, 110%. And so what I'm learning and realizing is that if I want her to know that I love her and appreciate her, I do dishes. I clean up after the kids. I pick things up for her. I make dinner. And we were working on this message yesterday.
This is great.
This is great. And so like right after we got done walking through it, like, are you good? I'm good. I went upstairs and what'd I do?
Just right away started making dinner.
Started making
after
dinner.
We went through this.
And
I'm
then
like,
we
wow,
cleaned
we
up.
should preach on this all the
Yeah,
time.
we finished dinner and I was like, she goes, I'm gonna take the garbage out. I said, no, honey, let me take the garbage out for you. And I picked up the garbage and I took it out and I was like, I love you. You know,
We'll see how tomorrow goes.
like it's gonna
after-
last yesterday and today, and then like tomorrow I'm gonna be like, oh, it's so hard. It's cold out. You take the garbage out. You know, I don't want to do that anymore.
You said in the first service that love is heard through the sound of the vacuum, and I'm like, oh,
Love
It
is
is.
heard through the sound of the bathroom. Vacuum. That's not love. I don't know what that is. Anyway, you're. Yeah, let's go. Let's keep going.
oh, it's me. Okay. Number 5 is physical touch. I'm sorry. Oh, that was a typo. Sorry. This language isn't all about the bedroom. A person whose primary language is physical touch is, not surprisingly, very touchy. Hugs, pats on the back, holding hands, and thoughtful touches on the arm, shoulder, or face, they can all be ways to show excitement, concern, care, and love.
And I think this is important. Remember I was telling you, it's not just about marriage, right? You can think about this with your friends. You can think about this with your coworkers. And we have a coworker that this is his love language. His name is Carlos Berroa. And if you know Carlos, just let me ask, what does Carlos love? Yeah, if you know Carlos for more than like a day, he'll hug you. And it was hard when he was coming into the office on a regular basis. He'd walk into the office, he'd give me and Annette a hug as he gets there. Hey guys, how are you? Come in, give us a hug. I'm like, I'm trying to work, but that's fine. And then it'd be like, oh, it's time to go to lunch. He'd be like, all right, man, I'll give you a hug. I gotta go to lunch. And then he'd come back and he'd be like, oh man, I'm back from lunch. You know, it's like, dude, you've hugged me 3 times today. My wife hasn't hugged me that many times. Like, relax, right? But the reason this is helpful to kind of learn and understand about your coworkers even is I need to know that, like, if Carlos is really struggling, like he's having a tough day, as much as I don't want to, like, I gotta hug him, right? You know? Like, it means more to him by me taking a moment to say, hey man, I know you're going through something, give me a hug, right? Like, it speaks volumes to how he feels loved. And I decided, like, if I ever have to come down on him for something like, hey, you didn't do that right, I'll just hug him, yell at him, hug him again, and we should, it's sandwich, compliment sandwich, you love him in that way. So anyway, it's not just about your dating or your spouse or that. It can really relate to a lot of things, like your coworker. So give him a hug today. He loves it.
That's true. So that's the 5 love language in a super fast nutshell. Like we said, get the book if you want to read more about it. But I guess the next step really is discovering your love language and discovering your spouse's love language. Obviously, this means nothing if you don't actually put it into practice. So there's a quiz online, I believe, if you Google it. It's also in the book to figure out I think that's how we figured out our love languages. But here's just some quick things to think about. So what hurts you most deeply? The opposite could be your primary love language. What have you most often requested from your spouse? And examine what you tend to do for your spouse to show your love. This is kind of how we figured out our kids' love language, is we paid attention to how do they show love to us. And one of them was like, Mom, let me tell you this awesome thing. And one was like, Mom, just give me a hug or whatever.
Let me snuggle.
Yep. So how do you love? That's probably how you would primarily want to receive love.
Yeah. So then once you discover it, you got to learn to speak it. You got to understand, okay, hers is acts of service. I got to figure out how to acts of service her. I got to figure out how to love her in that language. And then you learn to speak it. But then the other thing I just want to tie in as we're about to close is that you need to learn to receive it. I think that's important too, is now that we know, like I can understand that when Jacqueline does do the dishes for me, or, hey, I just want you to know I made you lunch today. Like, just so you know, like, I don't care if she makes me lunch. Like, not in a bad way, but like, it doesn't mean anything to me. But for her, what she was saying was, I love you. Here's a sandwich. You know, like she was trying to tell me I love her. So we not only need to learn to speak in the way that they receive love, but we need to learn to receive love in the way that they speak it, and understand that when she's doing this, she's saying I love you. And that's important for both of us to get and to understand. So I'm going to close, and I'm going to stand up to close because it's been too long for me sitting down.
Told you.
I'm going to get my preaching. Remember someone told me I had a preaching stance? I don't know. I'm going to get my preaching stance on. Let me close with this. As you think about this idea of learning your spouse and loving your spouse, or learning your friend and loving your friend, and you go back to Song of Solomon stuff, what you see is 2 people communicating. Two people talking to one another. And I'll just say this, for any relationship that you're in to be healthy, you have to have good communication. You have to communicate. You can't have a solid relationship with someone if you never communicate with them. Like, communication is a key to doing all this. If you're going to learn about your spouse, you probably should talk to them. And so I would just close with this thing, communication that is often, meaning on a regular basis that you're spending time communicating with your friend or your spouse or your coworkers, and you're learning who they are and you're learning more about them. You need to communicate on a regular basis, and I think that's really important. I would also say it needs to be open. And honesty is a key to relationships. And if you're going to communicate well, you got to be honest with one another. You got to say, hey, I felt unloved when you said that to me. Or I felt unloved because you just let the garbage overflow every single day. I feel unloved when you don't, whatever. You got to be honest in this. And then I'll close it with this last one. You have to be full of grace in the way that you communicate with each other, in the way that you see your friend and your spouse. My wife always says, always assume the best. That we need to always assume the best about each other. And the thing about being married to someone is that you spend a lot of time with them. Hopefully many years, and within those many years, many hours. And what happens is, because you spend so much time with them and you're in such close proximity to them, what happens is you see a lot more of their mistakes and failures. And so it's because of this that we need to, especially in that relationship, always assume the best and be full of grace. I wrote it this way, that we need to give grace like it's oxygen. That needs to be just a primary thing that we do to one another. And let me just wrap up with one verse. Ephesians 4:2 says this, always be humble and gentle. Be patient with each other, making allowances for each other's faults because of your love. It's because of our love for our friends, our family, our spouse, our coworkers. It's because we're commanded and called to love. It's because that love, it's because of that we are patient with one another and we make allowances for their faults. And so we continue to show our love in that way, and I think that's really important. We give grace like it's oxygen. So hopefully today something stuck with you, something encouraged you, something was helpful for you in a friendship, in your marriage, in any sort of relationship that you're in. Hopefully you can walk away and say, man, you know what? I need to learn my spouse a little bit more. I need to spend more time getting to know them and take the interest of not just myself, but look out for the interests of others. Or maybe you're learning that I need to learn to love my spouse in the way that they speak and receive love. I need to do a little bit of homework on them and learn how to love them best. Or maybe you just need to know that communication is key, and you need to do it on a regular basis with honesty and full of grace. And I just believe that if you do that, you're going to have healthy relationships. And I think that that's the thing that God wants for us, is to have healthy, loving relationships with each other. So if you would, let me just close with a word of prayer, and you can get out of here and do what you do. So Lord, we love you. Thank you for my wife and her wisdom that she was able to give to us today, and just for sharing the stage with me. Thank you for this group of people here that was with us, Lord. And we pray, Lord, my prayer is that we would be compelled by the love that you have shown us, that the love that you have given us, that unconditional, sacrificial kind of love, that we would take that and we would point it towards those around us. And I pray that in our marriages that we would learn our spouse and love them well. I pray that in our friendships we would learn them. We'd spend time getting to know them. We'd take time to look out for their interests and not our own. That we would honor them above ourselves. That we would love them and be patient with them. And I pray that when we do that, Lord, that people would see you in us. That as we live and love people, Lord, people would see a good picture of who you are and the love that you have for them. So we give all this to you, and we just pray that you would do something with it, Lord, that you would take our words and use them to bring you glory. And may we close today with just spending more time honoring and worshiping who you are. It's in your name we pray.